again, you don't need to memorize or to copy anything because this information is going to be in the final report. Good. So we have some columns about some parameters coming back from the search engines you used, from Mascot or OmicsHub, for example. Below, we have information about the peptides that helped to identify the proteins that we have in here. So I just clicked in here, so this is the list of peptides. We have the sequence, and we also have a link in here to the peptide atlas. So let me show you. Here it is. I just clicked in here and automatically we are delivered to the peptide atlas, so we can get further information from there. So we also have here some icons to check the spectra of the peptides, the identified peptides. Now we can see the matching for my ion series, and we also can show the sequence if we want. Okay, so we have a complete plot with all the information. If you were interested in that plot, you can save it as a JPEG image. Okay, so here it is. Good, let's go back. I'm going to show you the other part of the screen that we haven't seen before. Here we have all the filtering options you have for filtering your data in order to validate, perform quantification, whatever you want to do. Okay, so let's select some filtering criteria. Let's say, for example, that we want to filter our data according to a Mascot score equal or higher than the value of 16. Now it's filtering, so we will get some filtered results. Notice that now we have fewer proteins and the number of peptides is also lower. Good, so now notice that you can work with all your proteins or with your validated proteins. Well, let's validate. I mean, we have, yes, it says that I performed some validation before. Yeah, here it is, the icon. Yes, so let me summarize. What we did was to establish a filtering criteria. We applied that filtering criteria. So now we can use that filtering criteria to validate our proteins. You can validate according to your own criteria. That's up to you, depending on the reasons for your research. So now we have validated our proteins. So now we can work with all of our proteins or with only the validated proteins. So if I click in here, the validated proteins are going to be selected. Good. Good. So we have validated. Now we are ready to perform quantification. I'm going to perform quantification now. Remember that the kind of quantification that you can perform with OmicsHub Proteomics nowadays is the label-free based on the MPI index. Well, in my case, the amount of sample was 2 nanomole. So if I click in quantify, then I will get another column with the values of my quantification. Okay, so here it is. Good, so we also can group our proteins, but which could be very interesting for you is the functional analysis or for the we can get the information about in which signaling pathways our proteins are involved in. So for that, we can connect to Ingenuity in case that you have a license for Ingenuity pathway analysis, or you can use our tool called the Pathway Viewer. Now in here we have a list of signaling pathways, and in bold we have those pathways in which our proteins are involved in. And in brackets we have the number of proteins that are involved in those pathways. In our case, we are handling that data coming from a hospital where they were investigating the Huntington disease. So it seems that we have some proteins involved in this metabolic route. If we take a look to the legend, we see that our valid proteins are going to be framed in green. Actually, they are in here. The DNA complex, for example, is involved. If we place our mouse on top of any of the components, then we get the identifiers for the proteins. Notice that we have some other proteins in here, also identified and involved in this route. If we wanted more information about this route, we can go directly to Panther, clicking in here, and get information about the genomics and everything about those pathways. Good. So in here we actually have further functionality, like for example, we could select all of our proteins and double check whether we annotated everything, or we can group our proteins, we can tag our proteins, several other possibilities, but I don't want to delay too much. So let's go to the final step, which is the report. Now we are we need to select which project we want to create a report for. We can select which format we need for that final report. So let's say that we want this HTML because we want to share that information with some of our colleagues or with our customers. In here you can select which information you want to use. For example, let's say that we want to work only with the validated proteins. Okay, let's say create. And it will take several seconds. The time it takes depends on the information you want to add in your report and the size of the file. If you have many proteins, it may take you a bit longer. Okay, so the HTML report has the advantage that can be opened using a browser, so it's very easy to share it with, as I said, some of your customers or colleagues. Well, while it's being created, remember that whenever you are jumping from one step to another in the workflow, all you need to do is to select your experiment from here. And don't forget to create, here it is, okay. Don't forget to create first a project and then an experiment, and then you will have yes, all the information ready to be analyzed. Good, so here we have our HTML report. We have all the basic information in here. Remember, we added some literature information, the contact person who sent us the sample, the information about the sample. In here I filled the information for the instrument and the acquisition software. In this case, the protocol was a little bit simpler with only 3 steps. And now in here we have the information about our proteins. First, we get the information from the OMSA search engine. So we have in here the basics and the list of identified proteins. You see, you have the links to navigate and gather further information. And then in case that you have annotations or information about the annotation of your proteins, it will appear in the first place. Later we have the sequence, some other information is in there, and so on. So let's try to find the information about, yes, here it is, the information we got from the mascot server. We have all the parameters, all the settings that we established at the beginning, and then we get our list of identified proteins. Here we have the score according to mascot, and then the list of proteins. We also have the links in case that you want to gather further information. In this case, we have a long list. I don't want to show you the first protein because it's titin is very common protein and it's not giving us too much information. But for example, in this case, we have the score for this protein. We have all the information about the functional annotation. First of all, in the report, you see the function, the names, the domain, everything, the keywords, everything. And then we get some other parameters, the sequence, and the matching peptides. Okay, and the same for the next protein. Okay, so this is pretty much what I wanted to show you about OmicsHub Proteomics. I hope you found it interesting for you, and please don't hesitate to contact us in case that you wanted further information. You can send us an email to this email address you have in your screen, or visit our webpage to gather further information. Well, thank you very much for your attention, and I hope I will hear from you soon. Bye.